Imagine for a moment that you are sitting in a room. There is no music playing, no television humming in the background, no notifications pinging on your phone, just you, the walls, and the sound of your own breathing. How long does it take before you feel, somewhere deep in your chest, a subtle but undeniable discomfort? 5 seconds? 10? Maybe you reach for your phone before you even notice you're doing it. Maybe you start humming a tune just to fill the space. Or maybe, if you're honest with yourself, you feel something that borders on panic. A restlessness that says, without words, that something is wrong, that you need to do something, listen to something, think about something, anything but this. And if you've ever wondered why that happens, if you've ever been curious about why silence feels so threatening, when logically it should feel like peace, then this might be one of the most important explorations you ever undertake. Because today, inspired by the timeless insights of Alan Watts, we're going to uncover something that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. We're going to look directly at the part of you that cannot tolerate stillness. And by the end of this journey, I'll share with you a single practice, something you can do today that might just change your relationship with silence forever. But more importantly, it might change your relationship with yourself. Let's begin with a question that seems simple but opens into infinite depth. Who is afraid of silence? You might say, well, I am. But are you? Are you really? Or is there something inside you, something that speaks with your voice and thinks with your thoughts, that is terrified of what silence might reveal? Alan Watts spent much of his life pointing to a curious phenomenon, the way human beings construct an image of themselves and then spend enormous energy defending that image, protecting it, feeding it, keeping it alive. He called this image the ego, but not in the technical psychological sense. He meant something more immediate, more intimate. He meant the story you tell yourself about who you are, the narrative that says you are this kind of person with these qualities and those flaws, this history and those ambitions. The voice in your head that comments on everything, judges everything, narrates your life as if it were a movie, and you were both the main character and the critic watching from the back row. Now here's what's fascinating. This voice, this narrator, this sense of being a separate self looking out at the world from behind your eyes, it needs constant stimulation to survive. It feeds on thought. It feeds on problems. It feeds on the endless mental chatter that fills your waking hours. And silence, true silence, is its kryptonite. Because in silence, something extraordinary begins to happen. The thoughts slow down. The mental machinery starts to idle. And in that gap between thoughts, in that space where the noise fades, you might catch a glimpse of something that the ego desperately does not want you to see. You might notice that you exist without the story. You might feel, even for a moment, what it's like to simply be without being somebody in particular. And for the ego, this is not a relief. It is an existential threat. Think about it this way. If you've built your entire identity around being a certain kind of person, if you've invested decades in constructing and maintaining a self-image, then anything that threatens to dissolve that image feels like death. Not physical death, but something that in some ways feels even more frightening. The death of who you think you are. The ego cannot tolerate this possibility. So it does what any threatened creature does. It fights, it flees, it creates distractions, it generates anxiety. It whispers to you that you need to check your email, that you should worry about tomorrow, that silence is boring, that you're wasting time, that you should be productive, that something is missing, that you're not enough. All of this noise, all of this mental activity is the ego's way of staying alive, and silence is the one environment where its tricks stop working. Alan Watts often used a beautiful metaphor to describe this situation. He compared the human mind to muddy water. When you keep stirring the water, it stays cloudy, you can't see through it. But if you let the water sit still, something remarkable happens. The mud settles to the bottom and the water becomes clear. You can see through it effortlessly. Your mind works the same way. All the mental turbulence, all the constant thinking and worrying and planning and remembering, it keeps the water muddy. It keeps you from seeing clearly. And the ego, the sense of being a separate self, thrives in muddy water. It needs the confusion, it needs the activity. Because in clear water, in a still mind, you might look down and realize that the one who was so worried, the one who was so busy maintaining its image, was never really there in the first place. It was just a pattern in the mud, a disturbance that you mistook for yourself. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed what happens when you try to be silent? Not just externally silent, but internally quiet. For most people, the first thing that happens is an explosion of thoughts. It's as if the mind rebels against the very idea of stillness. You sit down to meditate, or you lie in bed trying to sleep, and suddenly your mind becomes a circus. Thoughts about the past, worries about the future, random memories, fragments of songs, imagined conversations, all of it comes flooding in, and here's the part that most people miss. This is not a sign that something is wrong. This is a sign that something is right. This mental noise was always there. You were just too distracted to notice it. Silence doesn't create the chaos. It reveals the chaos that was already running in the background. And the ego uses this revelation against you. It says, "See, you can't be silent. Your mind is too busy. You're not good at this. Better to just turn on the television and forget about it." But what if you stayed? What if instead of running from the noise, you just watched it? This is where Watts's insights become truly liberating. He pointed out that you don't have to stop your thoughts to find peace. You don't have to fight them or suppress them or transcend them through some heroic act of will. You simply have to see them for what they are. Thoughts are not commands. They're not even really yours in the way you imagine. They arise, they play out, and they disappear, like clouds passing through an empty sky. And you, the awareness that notices them, you remain, still, unchanged, the silent witness behind all the noise. Here's the trick that the ego doesn't want you to discover. You are not your thoughts. You are what is aware of your thoughts. And that awareness, that spaciousness in which all experiences arise and pass away, it has no problem with silence. It is silence. It's only the mind-made self, the story of who you think you are, that finds silence threatening. Because in silence its narrative loses its audience. There's no one there to be impressed or worried or entertained. There's just being, pure, simple, unadorned existence. And for the ego, that's the same as non-existence. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a wave on the ocean. The wave rises up, distinct and separate, with its own shape and movement. If the wave could think, it might believe itself to be an independent entity, separate from the other waves, separate from the ocean itself. It might spend its brief existence worried about other waves, comparing itself, wondering if it's high enough or beautiful enough, afraid of the moment when it will crash against the shore and disappear. But here's the truth. The wave can't see while it's busy being a wave. It was never separate from the ocean. It was always the ocean, temporarily appearing as a wave. Its rise and fall were the ocean's rise and fall. And when it crashes, when its distinct form dissolves, it doesn't die, it simply returns to what it always was. The wave was an activity of the ocean, not a thing apart from it. You are like this wave. The ego, the sense of being a separate self, is like the wave's temporary form. It rises, it has its moment, and it believes itself to be something distinct and vulnerable. But what you really are, what Alan Watts spent his life trying to help people see, is the ocean itself. You are not a frightened separate thing trying to survive in a hostile universe. You are the universe itself, temporarily waving as a human being, and in silence, in true stillness, you begin to feel this. The boundaries of your separate self start to soften. The wave remembers it's made of water. And the terror of dissolution transforms into the relief of recognition. But let's be honest, this is not an intellectual exercise. You can't think your way into this understanding. The mind cannot grasp what lies beyond the mind. And this is precisely why silence is so threatening to the ego and so liberating for what lies beneath it. Silence is the doorway to direct experience, not experience filtered through concepts and judgments and narratives, but raw, immediate, intimate contact with reality as it is. And reality as it is has no labels. It has no stories. It's not a thing that can be captured in words. It can only be lived, moment by moment, breath by breath. Here's something that might surprise you. The fear of silence is often the fear of finding nothing there. The fear that if you stop distracting yourself, if you truly become still and look within, you'll discover that the self you've been defending your whole life is an illusion. And in a way this fear is justified, not because you are nothing, but because you are not what you think you are. The ego is right to be afraid. Its days are numbered the moment you begin to get still. But what the ego can't understand, what it doesn't have the capacity to grasp, is that its dissolution is not your destruction. It's your liberation. Think about how much energy you spend every day maintaining your self-image, worrying about what others think of you, defending your opinions, nursing your grievances, replaying conversations in your head, and imagining better responses, planning how you'll present yourself in future situations. All of this activity, this endless mental work, is in service of a self that exists only in thought. It's exhausting, and somewhere deep down you know it. You feel the weight of carrying this fictional character through your days, propping it up, protecting it, performing it for an audience that is mostly too absorbed in their own performance to notice. Silence offers you a vacation from all of that. In silence, you don't have to be anybody. You don't have to maintain any image. You don't have to think the right thoughts or feel the right feelings. You can simply exist, as the trees exist, as the clouds exist, as the mountains exist, present, alive, without the burden of self. And here is where the real transformation begins to happen. When you taste this freedom, even briefly, something shifts. You start to realize that your value, your fundamental okayness, doesn't depend on your achievements or your personality or your story. You're not valuable because of what you do or who you are in the social sense. You're valuable because you're an expression of the whole thing. The entire cosmos had to be exactly as it is for you to be here right now, reading these words. You're not an accident in an indifferent universe. You're the universe's way of looking at itself, of experiencing itself, of wondering at itself. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's miraculous. But the ego won't let you rest in this understanding easily. It will come back. It always comes back. It will say, okay, nice philosophy, but you still have bills to pay. You still have problems to solve. You can't just sit around being one with the ocean. And in a practical sense, the ego has a point. You do need to function in the world. You do need to show up, make decisions, interact with others. Alan Watts never suggested that enlightenment meant abandoning ordinary life. What he suggested was something far more subtle and far more profound. He suggested that you could live your ordinary life while knowing in your bones that it's all a play, that the character you're playing is just that, a character, that behind the mask there is a face that was never born and will never die. This is not escapism. It's the opposite of escapism. It's the most radical form of presence possible. Because when you know that your ego is not ultimately who you are, you're actually freer to engage with life fully. You don't have to protect yourself so much. You can take risks. You can be vulnerable. You can fail without feeling like a failure. You can succeed without becoming inflated. The drama continues, but you're no longer wholly trapped in it. You can enjoy it for what it is, a magnificent, terrifying, heartbreaking, beautiful performance. Now let me share with you what I promised at the beginning, a simple practice that can begin to reveal all of this in your direct experience. It doesn't require any special equipment or any particular belief system. It only requires your willingness to be still for a few moments. Find a place where you can sit quietly. It doesn't have to be perfectly silent. Some background noise is fine. What matters is that you're not actively engaged in anything. No phone, no book, no task, just you, sitting. Now, instead of trying to silence your thoughts, simply listen to them as if they were sounds, the way you would listen to birds chirping outside a window or cars passing on the street. Don't engage with the content. Don't argue with the thoughts or try to improve them or follow them to their conclusions. Just notice. Oh, there's a thought about tomorrow. There's a thought about what I should have said yesterday. There's a worry. There's a plan. There's a judgment. Let them all arise and pass away without adding anything. After a few minutes of this, shift your attention slightly. Instead of focusing on the thoughts themselves, become curious about the space in which they appear. What is it that is aware of these thoughts? What is the background against which they stand out? You might not be able to answer this question intellectually, and that's the point. The question is not meant to produce a concept. It's meant to point your attention towards something that cannot be conceptualized, the aware space itself, the silent witness. Rest there, even if it's just for a moment, even if it's just a glimpse. That's enough. That moment of recognition when you sense the spacious awareness behind all your mental noise is worth more than 1,000 hours of philosophical discussion. It's the direct taste of what you truly are. And here's the beautiful part. This space, this awareness, it's always here. It never leaves. It's been here your whole life, silently witnessing everything, untouched by any experience, unharmed by any trauma, unconditioned by any circumstance. Your thoughts come and go, your emotions come and go, your sense of self rises in the morning and dissolves every night in sleep. But the awareness that knows all of this, it remains, and it has room for everything, the pain and the joy, the fear and the love, the noise and the silence. The ego's terror of silence is ultimately the fear of its own transparency. It's afraid that in stillness you'll see through it, and you will, not to destroy it, but to take it less seriously, to carry it more lightly, to stop mistaking the costume for the actor. If this exploration has sparked something in you, if you felt even a flicker of recognition while listening to these words, I invite you to sit with that feeling. Don't try to capture it or explain it, just let it be. And if you want to continue this journey together, consider subscribing so you don't miss what's coming next. We'll be exploring more of these timeless insights, diving deeper into the questions that matter most. How can you stop fighting with time and learn to dance with it? What happens when you stop seeking and let yourself be found? How can you live in a world that demands control while resting in the wisdom of trust? Leave a comment below and tell me this. After listening, what feels different even slightly? Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective is the beginning of the biggest transformation. And if you know someone who lives with a noisy mind, someone who might benefit from a few moments of true stillness, share this with them. Not to fix them or improve them, but as an offering, a reminder that beneath all the noise there is a peace that was never lost, only overlooked. The silence isn't empty, it's full of answers, but they're not the kind of answers the mind is looking for. They're deeper, they're simpler, and they've been waiting for you all along. Take a breath, let it out slowly, feel the space between exhale and inhale. There, right there, that's home. The ego doesn't know it, but you do.